Alright, this is Gensh, and this is Infernal's development log number 6. I'm doing way more of these than I expected. So, the topic this time is, what am I doing with the Yozis and the demons and everything? Well, that's kind of a complicated question. Obviously, I've been through several different drafts. I think I know where I'm going now, which is why I'm doing this video. Obviously, as I said in video 0, I do want input back from people, and this is obviously going to be one of the more controversial things, even though I'm not really doing anything that crazy. I do want to hear what people think about what I'm doing with this, though. So basically what happened is, I was throwing away the Yozis Civil War, throwing away that sort of establishing a kingdom narrative that wasn't particularly, interesting, and I decided to take a step back and see where the Yozis stood exactly in reference to, everything. They started out in the wild, and, well, what else is in the wild? The Raksha are in the wild. There'll probably be other things in the wild, but as of now, they're rather similar to the Raksha in structure. However, unlike the Raksha, while the Raksha are, ephemeral and they don't really last, the Yozis are eternal. Well, primordials are eternal, and the Yozis are eternal but weird, and they like to destroy bits of themselves so that they're not quite so eternal anymore. And they have been killed before. The Neverborn exist. So, what's the difference between Raksha and primordials? And just as important, what exactly is a Neverborn? And how does the maiming of the Yozis differ from the final death of the Neverborn? Basically, I decided that they were essentially glorified Raksha. Not in a bad way. It's just that, well, what are Raksha? Raksha are living stories. However, most stories, you write a book, maybe you publish it, maybe you don't, and then, there aren't that many people who remember it, and eventually you forget about it, or you forget, aspects of it, and it just doesn't, you forget about it, that's it. Then there are also some books that are really popular for a brief period of time, but they don't have any lasting value because, they're just they're really rooted in the current culture or current events, and, once it's over, it's over. I don't, obviously, Twilight's not going to last the ages. And so that's it, most stories are Raksha, and then the Ishvara are all Twilight, instant fame, but no real lasting consequences. Well, then, what are the Yozis in that they are eternal? Are they the classics? I wouldn't say so. They're not... They have particular narratives all their own, but they are also more generalized, I would say. So if the Shinma represent the different elements that you can have in a story, then the Yozi, which move the Shinma in order to create realities, and they arrange the Shinma in order to create creation, and they themselves are more complex than the Shinma. I'm thinking that they would be more like universal stories. Malfeas has, among other things, the story of the Invincible Warrior. Isidoros has the story of the Invincible Warrior. And so, Malfeas uses the story of the Invincible Warrior as part of his story of, the Invincible King. And then Isidorus uses the story of the Invincible Warrior as part of his story of, well, I'm Isidorus, I'm gonna go rampage over here, no one can stop me. So, they are eternal stories. They're more classic than the classics. They are... I wouldn't say that they're epics. I would want to say that they are perhaps the archetypal stories. There's not one story in particular that a Yozi is, but rather a Yozi is all these stories in this vein. And the demons that descend from them, which are a part of them, but are not them themselves, those are, I don't know if those would be the elements of the story as a whole, or if those would be... No, yeah, they would be the elements of the story as a whole. In particular, a lot of them are characters. And some of them, though, a lot of demons are, straight up landscapes. Well, that demon represents a setting more so than a character. And sometimes they can represent both, or a lot of times they can represent both because, I don't know, I guess Yozis are big into recycling. But, you've got the fetish soul, which is, the protagonist, the central character for the work. Then you've got the third circle, which is, the other main characters who aren't the central character. Then you've got the second circle souls, which descend from the third circle souls. You know what they are? They're the supporting cast for each of the main characters. And then you've got the first circle souls, which are produced en masse by the second circle souls. Okay, so they're the supporting character of the supporting character. Well, that means that they're a mook. And, that's why they don't have any status in the Demon City, because they are mooks. No one would even bother to learn their name under ordinary circumstances. And there have been cases of ascended extras, and you know what? Ceciline accounts for that, because it's possible for a first circle demon to become a second, or not to become a second circle demon, but to acquire citizenship. The first circle demon who advances to a citizen doesn't really change physically, but mentally, it's a whole other world. They are much freer, since the Yozi as the author isn't really thinking about them a whole lot. They've got much more freedom than a lot of other demons do, and since they have been elevated mentally to citizen, through their own work, mind you, they're, just as cunning as a supporting character, but without any of the restrictions of the plot saying, well, okay, he has to be here, because, the author's not consciously thinking about this ascended extra who's now got a name, now got a role in the story, but it's not a major role. And just the same, the method by which new third circle demons are created is that, you've got one of the third circle demons produces a progenitive soul, which is a second circle soul, which is a supporting character, and the supporting character then goes on to become a main character, a third circle soul. And, I think that's pretty neat, really. Obviously this model would need to be cleaned up, and I would need to decide on how certain aspects work. What happens when you kill a setting, for example. And, there's just a whole lot of stuff that can be done with this. But I think is the most effective way to make use of the demon hierarchies, because then I'm not just going, okay, well, here's a boss, here's a bigger boss, here's the biggest boss. And it really provides a very narratively focused way to interact with the demons. So it sort of goes back to that, point in the game line where it's like, oh, we need to find the Death Lord's secret weakness. It's not, or I don't know if I would want to have a narratively focused mechanic like the weaknesses of the perfect defenses for Infernals in the last edition. but I might dabble in that. I might try to see how that works, so that you do have your player characters interacting with demons in the manner where that's befitting of interacting with a fictional character. You can't just interact with them from your perspective and expect to get something out of them. It's, you have to become a part of the story. They have to recognize you as part of the story. And, well, of course, that's if you're playing nice. If you're not playing nice, you can just beat the crap out of them and, force the story to adapt to you, which is kind of what the Solars do, and that's what the Solars have always done. But, that's... You do want to try to interact more in a narrative fashion. And that, of course, reflects back. This does affect how the Neverborn would be perceived, in that they're dead stories. They're dead archetypal stories, particularly. So I suppose their death means that they've fallen out of fashion culturally. Just nobody tells these stories anymore. They know they exist. They can, go and look them up. They can see what they were like in the old days, but nobody's going to be telling them anymore. And, that's a tragedy for different reasons. It's not a tragedy. It was like, oh, no, you killed the architects of the world. It's like, these stories, no one tells them anymore. Why not? And with the Yozis, all the same, they've been shut away in some dusty old library. A lot of people... Or it's... Video killed the radio star, I guess. Well, that applies back to all media, so really, the Yozis are just, out of fashion, I guess.